Council meeting of the 17th of June 2025 at 6 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. City of Vincent would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay our respects to elders past and present, acknowledging that we as the City of Vincent have a role to play in working towards reconciliation and justice for First Nations people. Now, I haven't received any apologies, and I noticed that everyone is present, including Councillor Nicole Wolfe, who is joining us online. I have given permission for Nicole to join us because Nicole is currently not entirely well and has very thoughtfully decided not to spread the germs. So thank you, Nicole, and I hope you're going to get better soon. Now, we'll go straight to public question time. Can I please get an indication? Is there anyone here who wishes to address the meeting? Could you just give me a show of hands? Okay, not a problem. Okay, so if you haven't been to a meeting at the City of Vincent before, you just need to come forward, say your name and what suburb you reside in. And if there's a particular item that you're wanting to speak to, just tell us what the number is, because we'll be bringing that forward on the agenda to make sure that that's one of the first things that that gets discussed in the meeting. The meeting is live streamed, but if you don't wish to be recorded, please advise and we can just turn the live stream off for while you give your contribution, which is limited to 3 minutes, and you'll have the timer up on the screen, so you'll be able to know to stick to time. So you'll be able to, and I'll give you, if you get to time, you'll hear a bell, so you'll know that that's there. If a summary of your remarks will be included in the agenda, and then if there's any responses required, that will be in the agenda for the next meeting. Okay, so there being no further advice around that, if anyone would like to come forward, please, and speak, and you just give your name and the suburb that you reside in. And like I say, if you're speaking to an item that's on the agenda tonight, just tell me which one. Thank you.
My name is Vera Saragi. I'm from North Perth. Been a City of Vincent ratepayer for over 7 years. I'd like to comment on the draft short-term accommodation policy, which is not on the agenda, but I understand that it's possible for me to comment on it regardless.
Yes.
Thank you. I do think that the short-term accommodation greatly increases the profile of the City of Vincent, encourages visitors from regional Western Australia, nationally and internationally. I think the attractions in the City of Vincent represent some of the best things that I love about Perth: the parks, the outdoor areas, the cafe culture, the ease of walking and biking, not to mention Beatty Park, which is my personal favourite. Property can be set up for short-term or set up for long-term. It cannot be regularly used for long-term and then suddenly, for a weekend, be used as a short-term. This would attract security risks and hygiene risks, not to mention the intense effort of practical things like packing up all of your clothes and ensuring the fridge was empty. Nobody wants to come to an hosted short-term accommodation place where the owner's clothes are still in the cupboards and wilted lettuce in the fridge. This is why the 90-day time limit proposed just won't work. One of the things that attract me to short-term accommodation is the flexibility of using my property for my own purpose when I want, such as when my family members come to visit at Christmas time or where friends need a place to stay for a brief period. I'm not bound by the ever-restrictive requirements of the Residential Tenancy Act. It's really hard to get long-term tenants who are bad out of your property. I'm also passionate about ensuring that those who have had less opportunities in life get a fair go, such as single mothers, those for whom English is a second language, and those who haven't had the benefit of a formal higher education. These groups are highly represented in the short-term accommodation industry as property cleaners, linen providers, delivery drivers, and other trades. My property manager is a Noongar man. I feel like the draft policy does not represent the City of Vincent's Access and Inclusion Plan 2022 to 2027, specifically promoting inclusive employment practices within the city. A shame. Draft policy, if implemented, would deprive owners of the flexibility in using their own property offered by short-term accommodation. My question is, would the council please consider setting up a roundtable or task force to discuss a policy of short-term accommodation, which would include two things. Number one, Allow properties in the City of Vincent to be used as short-term accommodation, actually. Secondly, to minimise the loss in the gig economy that supports the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the meeting, please?
Hello, and thank you for your patience in listening to us tonight. I am Delma Davies. I live in the City of Vincent. I, in fact, have two properties in the City of Vincent. One I live in and one is above me that I put on the short-term market. My issue with that I wanted to talk to you about tonight is that the draft policy pretty much would inhibit me from being able to do that. My property upstairs supports both my mortgages. I don't have superannuation. So taking away the right for me to short term would be devastating to me personally, and I'd like you to consider that. But I believe in governance, so I was looking at all of your policies and wondering, my question for the council is twofold. One is, where is your data on the number of properties that are on short term in the City of Vincent, and where is the data on the complaints that we see, or we've had responses from the councillors that there are apparently hundreds of complaints against short term? I'd like to have access to those if that's possible, so that I can understand what's driving the policy that the city is trying to implement. The second thing is I'm trying to get a consultation with the mayor and other people prior to the closing of the consultation period, and that hasn't been possible. So my second question is that possible? Have a round table before the consultation period closes? Those are my two questions. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the meeting?
Yes, hello, my name is Gabriel Kefetsis. I'm the president of the Greek Orthodox Church of Western Australia, based over on Carr Street in West Perth. I'm here to talk about the same issue to do with the short-term accommodation proposal. As you know, we're located around the corner from here. We've got the Copper Dome, so we are an architectural attraction, and we've been part of the City of Vincent tapestry for many generations. On a personal level, I am the grandson of one of the founding members of the church, which brings me here today to talk about our situation. So firstly, we are a not-for-profit organisation. We're independent, so we're not funded by the Patriarch. We're not funded by any government bodies. We've been self-funded this whole time. We have a large parishioner base of both Greek and non-Greek parishioners. So our parishioner base has evolved outside of just the Greek community, and many of whom are also City of Vincent ratepayers. Given the many years of service, I would say it would be fair to say that we are quite a large organisation. However, as a not-for-profit organisation, we are experiencing the declining volunteerism that other not-for-profits have experienced since COVID. So this has caused a loss of connection to the grassroots of our community, and also we've also got the issue of staying business expenses that continue to rise. So in the context of this cost of living crisis, unfortunately we can no longer rely on traditional fundraising methods such as donations and sausage sizzles. The cost is simply too high. So we've been tasked with the lovely project of trying to work out how to raise the necessary funding to continue and keep our doors open and continue to provide a very valuable service to our community. So one of the fortunate situations we've got is that we have some properties that we've inherited from our predecessors, of which we've got a 6 one-unit dwellings within our establishment, and we feel that this would be ideal to convert them into a short-term accommodation. This would also contribute to securing our financial position. It would move us into a more sustainable model for the long term, and we would also not be dependent on local, state, or federal funding. In addition to this, in addition to our operating costs, the income would also contribute to funding some very, very overdue projects, such as restoring the roof, beautification of the grounds, and restorative works of surrounding heritage listed properties. I do have more to say, but I will say that it will improve the street appeal of the area, and my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to confirm as well that when this does eventually come back to council, and we don't know when that's going to be or in what form or anything like that, people, of course, are very welcome to come back and readdress the council.
Thank you very much.
That's not a problem. Would anyone else like to come forward and speak, please?
Hi, my name's Shay. I'm a resident of the City of Vincent as well. I also own a short-term business, and it's newly started in October, but I've got 5 or 6 years of experience managing hundreds of properties in the short-term industry for various different companies. I employ 2 full-time Australian citizens, one of which is actually recovering from cancer at the moment, and she can't work as a full-time nurse anymore. So the job that we have for her, checking the properties, going around and making sure the cleaning standards are correct, that the guests are looked after, that people are following my company guidelines and the community policies, that's a job that she can do, and she's really proud of that. The young boy, William, that I've got, he's 21, Australian, up-and-comer. He's a brilliant kid, and he really cares about my company and what we're trying to do. And what we are trying to do is we're trying to actually bridge that gap between the councils, the people, the guests, the property owners, and actually make a professional management company where we have noise monitors in place. We use professional registration people, Keith Baird, to actually get all of our properties registered. And we're trying to actually adhere to the rules that the council's putting forward, and I would really like to make sure that's fair. So my question to the council is, when these submissions come up, instead of trying to blanket ban us, could we look at a policy where we get the professional hosts of the area to actually come together and make a plan with you guys on how to actually solve some of these problems that you're having? Because from what I'm hearing, there are parties, disruptive guests, illegal activities going on. None of us hosts want that either. That causes massive damage to our properties. We have to do hours of work on insurance claims, getting people out of our properties, dealing with the police. Nobody wants that. We want to keep your community safe and have good people in the community as well. So I'd like to work with you guys. So if we could work out a way to do that, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to address the meeting?
Good evening. My name is Steve Young. I reside in Winthrop. I'm not a resident of the town of Vincent, City of Vincent. I am an interested onlooker because decisions made by the council, or future decisions being about to be made by the council, are going to be basically a precedent and looked at by other councils and what their actions are going to be when it comes to short-term rental. So my wife and I own and run a short-term rental management business in Mandurah. And taking the emotion out of it, what I would love the council to consider before you make your decisions, and if you could provide any documentation of any particular studies that may have been done to the economics of what short-term rent will add to your local communities. I can't speak for people running their businesses in Vincent, but I can speak for our business in Mandurah, where we and approximately 20 houses, which in this business is a few, but not a lot, provide $100,000 worth of wages in cleaners, handyman, let alone the money that we provide when we spend money on fuel and our travelling, the people who come and enjoy the facilities that we provide, who go and enjoy the council-provided facilities in that particular area, which would be very similar to the City of Vincent. So my question is, to keep it short, would the council please provide a study or statistics or documentation as to the money brought into the council by short-term rental versus what they feel might be the negatives of having those short-term rentals and not having what they want those houses to go to, which is long-term rental. If that could be documented and presented, that would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to address the council? You just need to come forward. It's okay. You don't need to. No, that's fine. You have a great scarf. Anyway.
My name's Samantha. I'm the West Australian community leader, along with my colleague Cherie. One of our roles is to facilitate regular meetups with other hosts in the whole of Western Australia. And we just had a very successful one with maybe 80 odd people at the Raffles Hotel just recently. And what I wanted to ask you is to consider possibly meeting with an Airbnb representative, not myself, but like in the legal policy sense. And what they would do is provide you with a lot of data that the general public are not privy to. So they will actually give you things that you can't just Google or look up. So my main role is to build partnerships with the community and with the council. And we would very much like to be able to work with you to make Airbnb, but any kind of short-term rental possible in your area, so that the neighbours are also happy, the community's happy, and maybe be a symbiotic relationship rather than an adversary one. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to address it? Sorry, Dudley, I was just wondering because there's a group of people that are wanting to. Sorry, of course you may come forward. Does anyone else wish to address the meeting? Sorry, thank you. I suppose I'm also just conscious that because we won't be discussing it tonight, you may want to. Exactly.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm also from the city of Perth. My position's a bit more of like a personal one than one of a host of a short term, although Shay is my fiance who runs a business. My family, they often come over from New Zealand. I have a sister she is a family of 6, so they're quite a large family. And when they come over, they can't afford to go and stay in a hotel or anything like that. There's her husband and 4 boys, so quite crammed, or it becomes very expensive and would make the holiday just completely unfeasible because there's not the facilities there for them to cook, do laundry, and just have the space for the kids to sort of be. And the thing that sort of stood out when I was reading through the policy changes was like the stipulation that there needs to be 1 car space per bedroom in the house, like for the properties, and for a house that they would be staying in, that would be 4 spaces for, say, a 4-bedroom house. And I would just like to know the justification for that, because they would tend to arrive in 1 car for the whole family of 6. And I just don't really see that it's a reasonable request for there to be 1 car space per property, and that would get rid of the majority of Airbnbs that they've ever stayed in. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to? Sorry, let's see. Would anyone else like to address the meeting? Okay, no worries. Hello, would you like to address the meeting, please? Thank you. And what's your name?
That'd be Maya Highgate. It is about short-term accommodation. No, it's not. Although I'm a user of short-term accommodation, I think the assumption that it's always party houses is completely wrong. The reason I'm here is that sometimes elected members make principled decisions, often to their own detriment, but without recognition, and I'm here to redress that. The trigger for this is the first item on the information bulletin, which is the minutes of the Mindarie Regional Council, and it's an item on page 16. So the background is on the 30th of May last year, the Mindarie Regional Council decided to increase their information communications technology allowance to the maximum of $3,500. That's on top of the allowances that each of the members get from their own councils. So some of them are getting $7,000 a year. Me, it was an example of snout in the trough attitude. It wouldn't pass the pub test. But the good news is that Councillor Castle was the only person to vote against that. So I congratulate you for taking such a principled position. No one knows about it unless you stumble across it. So I think recognition there. On the 24th of April this year, the item came up again, and it was in response to a petition from community members saying, get rid of this and use that money on environmental purposes. It came to the meeting, and someone moved that the allowance be cancelled completely, but it was lost 8-4, which I think is a great shame. So I'm just here to once again congratulate Councillor Castle on her principled stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the meeting? Mr. Raimondi, would you want to come forward, please, as the final speaker? Thank you.
Wow, Brian Raimondi. Oh, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, all the councillors. All protocols observed. Mine is not that beautiful like everybody else. I'm just here to say what a gratitude. No matter which way tonight goes, I just wanted to show up tonight. I just took my son swimming, and literally I just came here. Got a babysitter, so he's waiting for me to go and read him some books before he goes to bed. So it's just word of gratitude. I remember coming here last month and speaking about life work, and we have an opportunity tonight just to show that as a community, when a tragedy happens, we can offer sympathy or be empathetic. And when I'm just standing here, just everything is just running through my mind. Been to a lot of council meetings, and actually I was supposed to be in Rockingham. They're doing a same vote tonight, but I chose to be here because bus is close by my house, and I don't want to drive 1 hour over there. But I just want to take this opportunity to say I didn't write anything, just mumbling. So I just want to say thank you to Nicole. She's watching. And thank you to you. Without you guys hearing my backstory and how my son passed away, I wouldn't be here tonight. I was challenged by the government to get data and to create an advocate for a safer community. So I just want to say thank you. Even people who are going to vote no, I want to say thank you for your opportunity to listen to me. Thank you to listening to the experts who have done an amazing report. And if you can find it in your heart, make Vincent another amazing place to live, but knowing that we have a tool which, when in times of emergency, when you can't do a CPR on your kid or anybody who's dying from choking, and we know that ambulance takes more than 20 minutes, and it only takes 4 minutes for somebody to pass away. We have an opportunity to have tools next to us where when we try everything, at least we have something that we know can give us a better chance for an ambulance to get here. So thank you for listening to me, and good luck with the vote tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. So I advise that the items on the agenda that have been spoken to will be brought forward first. And there being no further questions, I close public question time at 6:23. Okay, so Governance Manager, can you please confirm if any written statements have been received?
Through you, Mayor Simon, there have been no written statements or questions in addition to those presented this evening. Thank you.
I haven't received any applications for leave of absence. Okay, so Councillor Warner.
I would like to make one.
if I can, from the 25th of August to the 19th of September.
Okay. Do I have a mover for that? So that's moved by Councillor Hallett. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried. I'm just going to noting as a matter of logistics, I can't actually see what counts. I can't see Councillor Wolf. I think maybe if it can be, I know, but I think it needs to be moved on the screen so that Councillor Wolf is a little bit higher on the screen, because Councillor Wallace's head is is exactly where it should be. Oh, there you go. That would be fantastic. Can we leave that as the big screen if that's okay? Great. Thank you very much. Can I just do that vote again, please, because I didn't see how Councillor Wolf. So all those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Are there any other applications for leave of absence? Okay. It's a procedural. All right, seconded Councillor Castle. There you go, sorry. Have we received any petitions, deputations or presentations?
Through you, Mayor Simon, no, there have been none received.
Okay, so can we have a mover that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 13th of May 2025 be confirmed? Moved Councillor Warner. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Greer. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I've just got a couple of announcements I just want to draw to people's attention. The first thing I want to draw to people's attention is actually behind you on the chamber. So if councillors want to turn around, they'll see on the wall that we have been gifted by traditional owner Vaughan Maguire 2 handcrafted sticks of authority that were given to us as part of the Sounds of Wandoulia event. You may note that he's handcrafted them himself and gifted them to us in recognition of the work that the City of Vincent has been doing with First Nations people. You may note that one of them is slightly redder than the other. That's because he was working with ochre, which is why we have the slightly different colour. The other thing I just wanted to draw to people's attention, which is a different history, is the police map that we've got over in the back corner, which is now up in the chamber. That's actually from the Police Museum, which is over on Highgate Hill, so in Lincoln Street over in Highgate. And that's actually a copy, blown up somewhat, of the original map that the police used to carry around with them from 1920 to 1950 of all the night beat routes that used to walk around parts of Vincent and the city of Perth. It's an interesting historical document because it lists a number of historical landmarks, including all the pubs, because I can imagine that would have been of particular interest to the police at that time. So I just thought I'd mention that, and I want to thank the history team for making sure that that was captured as well. Okay, so declarations of interest. CEO, I understand we have a few. Can you please outline them?
Through you, Mayor Zibon, we've received 4 declarations of interest. The first one is from Councillor Suzanne Warner, who's declared a financial interest in item 7.4, the adoption of the annual budget. The extent of her interest is that her son is an employee of the North Perth Bowling Club. She is not seeking approval to participate in the debate or remain in chambers to vote on the matter. The second interest is Councillor Ron Alexander, who's declared a proximity interest in relation to the adoption of the annual budget as well. The extent of his interest is that he lives opposite Hyde Park. He is not seeking approval to participate in the debate or remain in the chambers to vote on the matter. The third interest is Councillor Nicole Wolfe, declared an impartial interest in the adoption of the budget as well. The extent of her interest is she's a social member of the North Perth Bowling Club and a regular attendee of the Mount Hotham Playgroup. And the final one, Mayor Alison Simon has declared an impartiality interest in the adoption of the annual budget. The extent of her interest is she's a member of the East Perth Football Club.
Okay, so the items which have been brought to the front of the agenda is 10.1, the LifeAct device installation at community facilities. We do have a number of items which require an absolute majority. That is 9.3, 11.4, 12.1 and 12.2, as well as then the items where we've had 2 council members declare financial proximity interest, that being 7.4. We also have, I'll draw to your attention, a proposal for amendment to address that if that is agreed by council, so that those councillors can be excluded from simply the parts that to which they have a conflict, rather than the entire budget, which is of course far more extensive than simply 1 or 2 items. So in addition to that, Councillor Warner, are there any further items? Councillor Wallace.
9.2, sorry, missed if you already called that one out.
Sorry, what was that?
9.2, thank you.
9.2. Councillor LaFontaine.
No, thank you, Mayor Zaman.
Okay, Councillor Castle. Councillor Greer. Councillor Alexander. Councillor Hallett. Councillor Wolf.
Nothing further, thanks, Mayor.
Okay, I will simply work out which items can be passed en bloc.
So through you, Mayor Zaman, the block items that we have listed are 9.1, 10.2, 11.2, 11.3 and 12.3.
Okay, do we have a mover for those items to be moved on block? Okay, moved Councillor LaFontaine. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Warner. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. So now we're going to move to the first item on our agenda, and that is 10.1, LifeAct device installation at community facilities. So do I have a mover for this motion? So that's moved by Councillor Warner and seconded by Councillor Wolf. So Councillor Warner, over to you.
Thank you. The City of Vincent's motion here to introduce LifeVac devices across its sites is a proactive and potentially life-saving initiative that underscores its commitment to community safety and public health. By integrating these anti-choking devices into public areas with suitable housing for outdoor use, clear signage and appropriate training for staff and community members, the City is taking meaningful steps to enhance emergency preparedness across its facilities. To thank Brian for his passion and for his attendance here tonight, because as he mentioned, Vincent is not the only council having this discussion tonight. The word has spread and I'm overjoyed to support this motion, although I am flagging a slight amendment that I'm happy to speak to after others have had their say. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brian, for joining us again tonight and for your beautiful words and your engagement over the last month. Thank you also to Dale and the team, including Bev, who I understand took a leading role in preparing this, for bringing the item forward so quickly and for backing installation as well. As we know, choking can happen anywhere without warning, and every second matters. As we talked about last month, installing LifeVac devices is a simple, low-cost step that gives somebody another chance when there may not be another option. Since last month, momentum has really grown. We've seen progress in the LifeVac space across the Shire of Harvey and across the town of Bassendean and the city of Rockingham. Bassendean is actually voting tonight on the same motion that we supported last month. And the City of Rockingham has now approved 6 locations without even needing a notice of motion. And I suspect as we get more precedent underway, we'll see more of that occurring without the need for reports and motions. Unfortunately, over the last month, we also learned of the tragic passing of a 22-month-old in Townsville who lost his life after choking at daycare. The decision in the report has been well researched and thought out in terms of its implementation. It's low cost, low effort, and potentially life-saving. I really encourage all councillors to support the recommendation for installation.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. And I'd also like to acknowledge Brian for being here this evening. Thank you for your strength and for your advocacy. And to Councillor Warner and to Councillor Wolf, thank you so much for bringing this to Council. This motion brought into sharp focus for me that choking can impact many in our community, while the risk is higher in infants and children, but also older people and people with neurological conditions. I understand the LifeVac devices have saved thousands of lives across the globe. And while I hope there is limited need for our community to use these devices, it will be a welcome relief knowing that these devices would be available as an additional tool in an emergency response. I'm confident that the signage, the training of staff and regular facility users will support correct use of these inexpensive devices. I also hope that these devices will encourage further conversation, further education on preventing choking and policy change on a national level, including improved labelling. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item? I'd like to speak in support of this motion. I think that it's a small measure that's actually a really large one and very important. We don't know how often these things will be used, and I don't mind, because all it's going to take is if it only ever gets used that one time. As far as I'm concerned, that is worth the investment. And I'm really relieved to know that we're going to have these sorts of devices available at our community facilities. Anything also to raise awareness, which is something that is very important as well. I said this last month, and I'll say it again. Thank you for your courage in the face of unspeakable loss, and thank you for doing this in memory of your precious son. So I will most certainly be supporting this when we vote. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Okay, I note that there is an amendment to this item on the agenda. Councillor Warner, are you intending to move that amendment?
Yes, I would like to. Thank you.
So that's in front of you. You all have that. That's in purple. Okay, so we've got the proposed purple amendment. Do I have a seconder for that, for the amendment? That's seconded by Councillor Wolf. Okay, so Councillor Warner, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. The motion that we've got tonight is fabulous, and I really thank admin for it. One thing that we're looking to amend is that the motion includes the evaluation of the installation of the devices, and Councillor Wolf and I are keen to just specify some of the things that would be included in that evaluation and at what point we would be able to receive that evaluation. We're looking at, we want to know where things have been installed, the usage. Have there been any issues arising, including vandalism, etc.? Some of them are housed in outdoor spaces that are publicly accessible. I can't even say accessible, and that's the whole point: is that they are accessible. If there's any information on the signage and the staff training, and any collation of any community feedback that we have received. This is basically because the LifeVac devices are newly being rolled out across local governments across WA. It's an emerging initiative, and this evaluation report will allow Council to monitor the implementation and identify any operational issues to inform any future decisions. Basically, we just want to get as much information as soon as we can get it. the amendment had initially February 2026. Admin have proposed May 2026, which is absolutely fine with me. So that's the amendment I'd like to put through.
I'm just going to confirm then, are you amending your own amendment so that the February will now read May 2026?
Yes, I guess I am. Thank
Because the purple one in front of us still has February.
Yes, yes.
Okay, well, I just want to confirm, Councillor Wolf, are you, as the seconder, are you accepting of that amendment? Further
Yes.
amendment to the, yes, okay. Okay, so people are very clear now that the amendment that we're speaking to is on the purple sheet, but instead of reading by February 2026, that is now May 2026, in line with the recommendation from administration. Okay, so that is what we're discussing at the moment. So, Councillor Wolf, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Thank you, Mayor. As we said, this is a new initiative that's now evolving and being rolled out across different local government areas in WA and across the country now, actually. But what is very useful is for us to have this evaluation so that we understand any issues and any benefits that we are seeing from it. And any community feedback that's received. We're not asking for community feedback to be commissioned, but it would be useful just to know of any feedback that has come our way. And that will be really useful for us in terms of any decisions that we make with regard to community-run facilities as per the current recommendation, but also any future rollout that we might consider to other community groups within Vincent or other venues within Vincent.
Would anyone else like to speak on the amendment? Councillor LaFontaine.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm supportive of the amendment. I'm also quite curious to hear the community feedback and the usage data, particularly regarding the suitability of the locations, given their alignment with the existing AEDs. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on the amendment? Okay, so are you happy for me to put the amendment? Okay, so I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. So now we have the amended motion in front of us. Does anyone wish to speak to the amended motion? Okay, Councillor Warner, would you like to say anything in conclusion?
Yes, thank you. Look, the City of Vincent is setting a powerful example here for other local governments, investing in innovative safety tools and embedding them within the framework of visibility, accessibility, I said it right that time, and education. It creates a model of proactive public health leadership. This initiative not only enhances safety today, but also builds community resilience for the future. In summary, the introduction of these devices, supported by sufficient housing, signage, training, demonstrates the City of Vincent's forward-thinking approach to protecting its residents and visitors. It is a commendable initiative that strengthens public safety infrastructure and reinforces the city's reputation as a caring, prepared and community-orientated municipality. But I really hope to goodness that we don't ever have to use it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put the amended proposal. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to the administration for the work that you've done on that important motion as well. Thank you. Thank you. Let you get home to your son.
Thank you, guys. Be
Bye.
blessed.
Blessings to you. Okay, so now we move on to item 9.2. State Administrative Tribunal, Section 31, reconsideration, number 40, Guildford Road, Mount Lawley, reconsideration of heritage conservation notice. Do I have a mover? So that's moved, Councillor Castle. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. In this item before us, the SAT is asking us to reconsider a previous decision of council to issue a heritage conservation notice on this property that will require the owner to restore the property and maintain its protected status. We're not considering the listing of the property on the MHI, that remains unchanged. This invitation to reconsider our decision falls under Section 31 of the State Administrative Tribunal Act, and I had a bit of a look at that, and in particular at a fact sheet that the SAT itself has published about reconsiderations, which outlines some of the likely reasons that they might invite a reconsideration of a decision, including where the circumstances have changed or some additional information has been provided. In this case, DPLH have been asked to provide additional information to council. But I look at that and I think, what does that additional information amount to? In their letter, DPLH has acknowledged that when the HCN was issued, designs for the development had not been finalised. When those designs were considered, a design that retained the dwelling were not preferred due to smaller yield. They haven't provided any plans, not even confidentially, or any detail to justify this. So we have no idea about how they've determined that that was preferred and that it wasn't an option to retain the dwelling. It is simply an assertion. So in the absence of this detail, there's very little indication that they at any time seriously entertained any option that included retaining the property. As we've seen with the wholesale removal of multiple mature trees from the site, the state government certainly seems intent on treating this site as a clean slate, letting nothing get in its way. If I was being cynical, I would say that DPLH has shown a blatant disregard for the H in their moniker. But maybe let's think about another H that's come up in this discussion, and that's housing, and specifically social housing. This is not actually relevant to the decision of council tonight. We're not determining a DA for the construction of anything on this site, but it certainly seems to be the basis for the DPLH's assertion, and there's a suggestion that the position of council seeks to undermine that. There is no doubt that this is an incredibly important consideration with the state government and the WAPC when the DA for this site is ultimately considered. I accept that it will fall within the definition of public works, which certainly gives the WAPC greater discretion to overlook and overrule local considerations such as our MHI and the HCN. The rationale of this recommendation as it currently reads appears to be that that's inevitable, so why fight it? I don't accept that. When this application is considered by the WAPC and they have regard to the MHI and the HCN, let them consider it in its full-throated context, a context that represents the position of council and the position of the local community, who have tirelessly advocated for this site and their local environment, not a diluted version that contemplates its failure from the outset. The position of council and the community has always been clear. The history of our neighbourhoods is valued. This property is valued. Social housing is also vitally important and welcomed in Vincent, but this is not an either-or proposition. This seems to be what DPLH would have us believe. We know there are ways to accommodate both to achieve an outcome that provides for future generations while preserving the history of past generations. DPLH could be considering a development that provides the level of housing required while preserving the heritage property. They're choosing not to by asserting that it's not preferred. Well, I think we can do both, and I think our community sets high expectations for this council, and we should do the same for the state government. So to bring this back to what we're actually considering tonight, which is the Section 31 reconsideration, have the circumstances changed? What have we been presented with that should prompt council to change its position? An assertion in a letter from DPLH that they would prefer not to have to accommodate a little house that they've let degrade. It's not good enough. Our Vincent community wouldn't accept that argument from us, and I don't accept it from the state government. I won't be supporting this recommendation and will be seeking to move an amendment if I have the support of fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Castle. Councillor Castle, as Deputy Mayor, I'm going to ask you to immediately take over the chair, please. Thank you. No, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to.
Okay, so I have to now switch hats and go to the seconder. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, thank you, Councillor Castle, an incredibly well reasoned discussion on that, and I think the second principled stand you've taken, well, you can take credit for tonight. Look, it's really disappointing to see this item come back to council after over a year since council made the original decision to retain the building on the municipal heritage inventory with no change in DPLH's approach to the site. Council's heard a variety of reasons why this building should be demolished. When it first came to council over a year ago, Main Roads and DPLH argued that the demolition was necessary as the existing Guildford Road East Parade turning lane needed to be duplicated, and then it was necessary for both lanes to extend from the current 165 metre length to a 180 metre length, which would take out the front portion of this building. Main Roads and DPLH do disagree with me, but the traffic study provided in support of that several months later did not adequately demonstrate that the extra around 4 or 5% of physical space that the demolition would have added to the turning lane area had any significant impact on traffic behaviour at that intersection. That approach seems to have dropped away, and recently it's now the department's position that the retention of the building cannot be done due to a desired yield from the site, which I also disagree with. I understand, not that we've seen them or it's been provided by the department, but I understand that the current plans are for a 3-storey development at the site. The DAP last year approved 8 stories on a site just on the other side of the rail from this one. Not saying that 8 stories are appropriate here, but I think that does speak to the fact that this locale can take appropriately managed height, and that there is plenty of scope to increase the height in some areas of this site to facilitate retention of this building and maintain the desired dwelling yield. Aside from this heritage building, I think it's fair to say that the City of Vincent's quite on board with the HDB program from the department and the idea of social housing in this particular location. It'd be fantastic if the state could work with the city on this site, however, to make sure some of our objectives, and particularly around the preservation of heritage and the adaptive reuse of heritage buildings, objectives that are generally purported to be shared by the state government and the department, could be implemented side by side with a desire for yield. Preservation of the structure would be of great benefit to heritage within Vincent and would provide a great deal of amenity to the site and its future occupants as well. I think the Rosewood facility just down the road from here and across from BD Park is a great example of combining heritage retention and reuse while hitting an appropriate density and dwelling yield within a new development sharing the same site. The building continued listing on the MHI is reasonable and appropriate, as is the heritage conservation notice issued by the city in accordance with relevant local and state framework. I'd strongly ask the department to consider all possible options for retention of this site, including working with the city. And failing that, would hope that any future decision maker for development plans for this site would share the city's and the community's views on the significance and value of the building and the opportunities it presents. So yeah, I don't support the item as written and understand as an amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Would anyone, Councillor Greer?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Castle. In considering this item, it was great to read in the report and a good reminder that this property is owned by the state government. The state government are the decision makers for the redevelopment of the site, and they are the planning authority that oversees statutory planning matters. I think our community have been very clear that social housing of this scale is very much welcomed at this site. The community have also been very clear in their ask for this site. Primarily preserve the trees, and in that the community was ignored, and now they're asking for the preservation of this heritage home. I share our community's disappointment at the seemingly unwillingness of the state government to listen. It's clear that they're not listening to the desire for alternative proposals that would see social housing being built and the preservation of this heritage property. I'd like to particularly thank the community in Wandoulia for their advocacy on this matter. I support affirming our previous decision, and I'm open to amendments that have been foreshadowed. Thank you.
Would anyone else listen? Anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, I understand there are some amendments on the table. I think now I'm sitting in this chair, maybe I can't move one of those, or I won't, so we'll open it up to the floor. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. Seeing as you're up there and I'm down here, I'm going to choose to move my amendment. Which, let me get the...
Do we have a seconder? This would be the one on the green. Councillor Greer, thank you, seconded. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. I'm all the way through my speech, so I don't have much else to say about this other than this proposed amendment removes the direction to the CEO to withdraw the heritage conservation notice under a number of potential future scenarios. I don't think that's necessary at this point in time, and does request the CEO to write to all relevant parties, advising them of Council's decision tonight, and with a few suggestions for reuse and retention.
Agree. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wallace and others for bringing forward this discussion. I think this would be in line with our community expectations on this matter, and particularly open towards supporting this recommendation in that it states that we'd be open to all opportunities for retention of the dwelling. As I read this doesn't commit us to that. It puts it very clear that the community expects the highest level of preservation for this, and we as a council would look moving forward to what that opportunity is, including resumption of ownership of the dwelling. Thank you.
Councillor Hallett.
Just a question of administration. In admin's comment around the withdrawal of the HCN, can you just confirm that the only difference between us making that removal now versus later is simply that we make that decision later?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Castle. Yes, that's correct. So the alternate or the amendment from Councillor Wallace is that wouldn't be anything in the recommendation from tonight that foreshadows removal.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Warner.
Just thank you to my colleagues for presenting this, and I'm hugely supportive of your amendments, and I believe our community will appreciate the fact that we are living up to their expectations here. On my regular bus route, I go past Cleaver Street where they have managed to retain it, and it's been the Rosewood, it's been an amazing sight. And I think that's something that we should aspire to. And I was also there when they chopped down the trees, and that was a devastating day. So thank you for bringing this forward, and I wholeheartedly support it.
I apologise for leaving the chamber. There's been a family emergency. So can I just ask? Can I just confirm which proposal we're currently on? Are we on Councillor Castle's or Councillor Wallace's? Okay. Sorry, because I was aware that there were two, and I apologise. Okay, so Councillor Wallace's and Councillor Castle, you wish to speak on
Yes,
this?
thank you, Mayor. Yes, just to clarify, Councillor Wallace moved the amendment on the green, and it was seconded by Councillor Greer. Councillor Wallace, Councillor Greer and Councillor Warner have spoken to the amendment. And now I would like to speak to the amendment. I am supportive of this. As only one line of difference between the amendment that I had also asked to be prepared. So very supportive of what's being proposed here. I think, as I outlined when I spoke to the item, my concern with the original recommendation is that it foreshadowed the withdrawal of the HCN, which felt somewhat defeatist. And my position is that we should be putting our strongest position forward to the WAPC as a decision maker, making it very clear what our position is and how we wish this item to be considered, including giving due weight to both the MHI and the HCN. And thank the manager for the conversation today, because he did help to clarify the item that you raised, Councillor Hallett, which is that we proceed without this extra clause. If the DA is approved by the WAPC and if the property is demolished or works commence, then at that point the HCN will still exist but will not have any effect. Council can make a decision at that time to withdraw it, but it is essentially moot. So there's very little difference in the outcome in that situation. There are obviously some other things that might happen if the DPLH or state government decides to pursue this further with the SAT, but I think that's a risk worth taking. So I'm very supportive of the amendment and hope that other councillors will be also.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Hallett.
Just only to say, look, I'm happy to support it, in part because I think there's been some media misreporting about what's happening tonight. And I think that this would just make it a little bit clearer for community as well around what's actually being proposed.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? So it was moved in my absence by Councillor Wallace. Councillor Wallace, is there anything you wish to say?
No, thanks.
Okay, well in that case, we will move the amendment. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we now have the amended motion in front of us. Can I please just confirm, and again, I apologise for this, I'm just getting it for clarity, that the people that have already spoken to the motion so far have been Councillor Castle, Councillor Wallace, Councillor Greer. Okay, right. So I haven't missed anyone. Would anyone else like to speak now to the amended motion? Okay, Councillor Castle, is there anything that you'd like to say in conclusion? Okay, I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we move on to 9.3, Health Services Historical Sundry Debtors 2018 to 19 to 2022 23 debt write-off, noting that an absolute majority is required for this. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Wallace. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Warner. Councillor Wallace, do you wish to say anything?
Not really. I think we had a good discussion around this one last week at the briefing, and I'm pretty happy with where we've landed on it. So, support.
Councillor Warner. Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay, I'm going to put it. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried and unanimously, which is also an absolute majority. Okay, so then I'll move on to item 11.1. That's financial statements as at the 30th of April 2025, noting that an absolute majority decision is required. Do we have a mover for this? That's moved, Councillor Hallett. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wallace. Councillor Hallett, do you wish to say anything?
Nothing to add.
Okay, Councillor Wallace. Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? All those, I'll put it then. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously and absolute majority has been achieved. So now we move on to 11.4, the adoption of the annual budget 2025-26, noting once again that an absolute majority decision is required. Do we have a mover for this item? Moved Councillor Castle. Do we have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Hallett. Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to support this year's annual budget, and I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank administration. Seems fitting that the acting CEO is our Director of Community and Business tonight, because it's largely due to your work and your team's work that we have such a smooth budget process. So thank you for all of that. I think we have a great reflection of the work, the enormous amount of work that is happening in Vincent, and a very modest budget to make that happen.
Councillor Castle, I'm so sorry. Can I interrupt you now,
Yes,
if that's okay?
of course.
I'm sorry. I actually missed something. It's because I'm a little bit frazzled. I'm sorry about that. So I'm just, before we do this item, I should have done this. So before we begin the discussion on this item, adoption of the annual budget, we do have to note that 2 council members have disclosed proximity and financial interests in specific projects that have been listed in the Capital Works program and a rates waiver. So these interests have been recorded in accordance with the Local Government Act. So to allow full participation in the remaining components of the budget and to ensure compliance with the Act, I propose that council provides the recommendation so that the items relating, divides the recommendation so that the items relating to those specific projects can be considered separately. So this approach is consistent with clause 5.7 of the city's meeting procedures local law, which allows the presiding member or council to order that a motion be divided. Accordingly, I'll now put forward the following procedural motion, which will be voted on without debate. And the recommendation is that in accordance with clause 5.7 of the City of Vincent Meeting Procedures Local Law 2008, council divides the recommendation for item 11.4 into two separate resolutions to enable recommendation 1.6b, 2b and 7b, in which Councillor Alexander has disclosed a proximity interest and Councillor Warner has disclosed a financial interest, to be considered and voted on separately. So I'm going to put that procedural motion. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Apologies for that. And now I am going to go back to you, Councillor Castle, because you were speaking, and I apologise.
Thank you, Mayor. That's totally fine. Completely understandable, and happy that we were able to accommodate that through dividing the resolution. Forgotten where I was at, but the last thing that I really wanted to raise is that we continue to plan for and deliver the underground power project. This is a massive project for the City of Vincent that will continue for some time, certainly in terms of how we deal with it in our budget and how we deliver it to, or assist Western Power to deliver it in our community, but with a benefit that will be enjoyed by our community for many, many, many years to come. I know that, and we all know around this table, there's been a lot of debate and a lot of discussion about how to approach this. And so it's very satisfying to be at this point where we actually have some real decisions to make about how we will facilitate this huge project for our community. So once again, a big thank you to the team, because there has been a lot of work and a lot of back and forth on how we can make this happen. So I also just very quickly thank you for the amendments from last week. They make a lot of sense, and I think that's a really sensible way to and reasonable way to approach that issue. So wholeheartedly support the budget.
Councillor Hallett.
Bad.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the budget? I'm very happy with the budget that we're putting forward. I understand that we are putting more of a priority into dealing with a backlog of essential infrastructure within the city, most notably around our footpaths, and ensuring that we are continuing to progress issues of accessibility within the city, but also noting the considerable investment we've had to put into improving our tree canopy and our green spaces. We are adopting quite an additional cost as a result of having to deal with the effects of polyphagous shot hole borer, and I am concerned at the degree to which local governments are still required to take on so many of those costs. But it's something that I know that we here at the City of Vincent take very seriously and will continue to invest in. I also am very supportive of what we're doing with the long-term financial plan, that we are trying to ensure that we are maintaining what are actually state quality facilities. And I also understand that it is essential that I as Mayor and other people within this council and the administration continue to advocate at both the state and federal government level to ensure that we continue to receive grants to be able to meet these requirements, and that it doesn't fall entirely on Vincent ratepayers to have to meet these costs. I also note that with the requirement to increase density in the City of Vincent, there are a lot of costs that our ratepayers don't see that we need to incur. That's not just traffic calming measures, but it's also the effects on things like our drainage systems and the need to upgrade our roads. These are all costs. And so this is a very big challenge, as well as the planning that is involved with that. And I'm really conscious that this is core business for us that we are taking seriously. I know that we've taken taken a fairly measured approach to this budget in terms of trying to focus on the basics, and that's something I'm very pleased about, as well as at the same time as we're trying to deal with the big ticket items. But it has been explained to me that we are still one of the lower rating councils, which may not feel like it for people that get their rates, but in terms of certainly what we are able to provide, what we're doing here, we are trying to do our best to make sure that we're maintaining a fiscally responsible budget. And whilst some local councils have received some negative publicity about perhaps expenditure that is not in line with ratepayers' expectations, I think all of us here know that that's not something that can be levelled at us at the City of Vincent. So it is a responsible budget. I think we've put a lot of work into this. I want to thank the team, and I particularly would like to acknowledge you, Reece, as the Chief Financial Officer, for the work that you've done to get it to this point. It is a budget I'm happy to stand behind, and it's a budget that I'm happy to defend. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Okay, so Councillor Castles, anything you'd like to say in conclusion? I'll put this now. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, with the second one. Okay, so can I please ask that Councillor Alexander and Councillor Warner now leave, just as we deal with the just the remainder of the items which you've declared your interest. Thank you. Okay, so you've got in front of you with the beige apricot, I don't know, what do you want to call it, paper in front of you. You can see the recommendation part 2, okay, and it requires an absolute majority just like the last one. It would require a mover and a seconder. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Castle, seconded Councillor Greer. Councillor Castle, do you wish to say anything to this?
No, not really. Support this part as well.
Councillor Greer?
Nothing further.
Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Okay, I'm going to put it then. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously, and that is an absolute majority that has also been achieved. Could you please ask Councillor Warner and Councillor Alexander to come back into the room? Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd also like to make a point about the process. I think that's a better process for us to follow in future, so that we don't have councillors that are excluded from the entire budget process when they've been so diligent about being involved with it. Okay, so now we move on to 12.1, which is adoption of Corporate Business Plan 25-26 to 28-29 and the 4-year capital works program. This also requires an absolute majority. Do we have a mover? That is moved by Councillor Castle. Is that seconded by Councillor Hallett? Okay, so Councillor Castle, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a lot to say other than to acknowledge that these are two incredibly important documents for our city. They set out how we will operate in the next 4 years and what our priorities are. They underpin the budget. And as mentioned, when speaking to the budget, they really outline just the scope of and breadth of the work that is to be done. It is enormous, particularly for a small council like us. This really sums up the entire work of the city and the effort of all of our very hardworking staff. So thank you very much, and happy to support.
Councillor Hallett?
At the risk of being repetitive, I was just going to say that I think these documents really represent for community the priorities of the council and what we're investing in, and a big focus on the basics, but also particularly on maintenance and renewal rather than lots of new works. And thanks again for the team for putting these together.
What I'm really pleased about was noting that the feedback that we had from the residents who fed into the long-term plan, noting that we are apparently clearly on track, that once things had been explained in terms of how money was allocated and how we were putting forward the priorities, that people have indicated that they're very supportive of that. I think it's telling for us, noting how surprised people were when they realised that we don't have as much money as people assumed that we do, and when they realised that we simply don't get the level of buy-in from state and federal governments to enable the ongoing maintenance and upgrade of our facilities that they would have thought we would have received. So that tells me that we do have a really important piece of work to do as we're communicating to make people aware of just how much we are delivering without having that broader support. So, because when people find out what it is we are actually doing and spending it on, they're pretty happy actually, and frankly, they should be. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Councillor Cast, do you want to say anything in conclusion? I'll put the proposal. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Just to let you know, Councillor Wolf, there's a lag of about 3 seconds. So there you go. All right then. So then I move to item 12.2, and that's the reappointment of the chairperson and deputy chair, Audit and Risk Committee. Do I have a mover for this item? Moved Councillor Castle. Do I have a seconder? Seconded Councillor Howard. Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support. This is a sensible way to deal with the upcoming changes that will be required, and it reflects the current positions. So happy to support.
Okay, Councillor Howard's indicated no need to speak. Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Okay, I'm going to put it then. All those in favour? All those against? Okay, so, oh, sorry, there was, again, because of the lag, it was unclear. I'm going to put that again. All those in favour? Okay. All those against? Okay. Noting that Councillor Warner voted against. Okay. So there being no further business to conduct, I thank all those in attendance and on the live stream, and I